What's up, everybody? So I'm making a video response to Sardonic Skeptic. Deryk is his name. Deryk, you and I don't know each other. We've never spoken before. You also have another channel called Asymmetrical Warfare, and apparently you had another one called Deryk 369 or something like that. My response is to Deryk's video that talks about sex addiction, or men are sex addicts, basically. And I watched all of your videos. I just got done watching your new channel and some other shit or something like that. The first video where you talk about men being sex addicts, and you make your initial or main argument, and then your follow-up where you got angry. And I watched all three of those. I watched Paul, Gothatfunk's response. First and foremost, I really enjoyed and really liked Paul's response. I thought he was spot on every one of his points. Here's something, I don't know you, Deryk, and you don't know me, but something you're going to understand about me is I really don't like people who are condescending, and I don't like people who, I'm sarcastic. I like to joke around and cut up, but you're a condescending prick, dude. And sorry, you just are. Now, this is not, this is not going to be some ad hominem video, or this is not going to be just a personal attack on you. And I don't want anybody to think that that's what this is. That's just my opinion. That's my personal opinion. Knowing what I know from your videos before, I think the only thing that you and I have in common, Deryk, is that we're atheists. I'm pretty sure you're an atheist. Otherwise, politically, we're very different. I'm an anarchist. You are like a right-wing conservative. If you were an American, you'd be a right-wing conservative Republican. But you're Canadian, I think. You and I really just don't agree on just about anything. And I've always thought you've been a bit of a condescending prick before. But now you've proven yourself to be. Because what you said in your third video here, this new channel and some shit video about Paul, Gothatfunk, the way you called him retarded and said he was babbling on, that's just shitty, man. I mean, and here's the thing. He didn't shame you. He wasn't trying to shame you, Deryk. If you felt shame, then you need to reevaluate that, brother. That says something about you. That doesn't say anything about Paul. If you felt shame or felt he was shaming you, that says something about you, because I didn't get that at all. Now, I want to try to address some of these points that you make, and I'm definitely going to address the whole rape issue, because I want to paint a picture for you with that. But you go on in one of your videos and you talk about men being sex addicts, and you generalize. Now, I know you came back in your little angry rant second video, which really that's what it was, and you got angry at everybody for telling you, well, what are you generalizing for? You're saying all men. Well, you did convey it to seem like that. Whether you meant all men or not, Deryk, that's really the way it came across. So when people call you out on it, don't get pissed off, because really that's all it was. You got pissed off and you ranted because people were calling you out on generalizing. You said it's a conversation stopper. Well, it's only a conversation stopper because you're getting defensive. You said you wonder it makes you wonder where people are psychologically who flip out over this. Well, that's what you did, Deryk. You kind of flipped out. People were flipping out. So what does that say about where you are psychologically? Think about that. Okay. This whole men are sex addicts. There's so many different levels of addiction. I mean, there's physical addictions, and there's psychological addictions, and there's so many varying degrees of these things. There's so many factors involved in addiction. Addiction is like a compulsion. It's like an over-compulsion. It's, it can be like a disease. You have a physical addiction, nicotine, caffeine, sugar, alcohol, heavy drugs. I mean, there's varying degrees of these types of addiction, which is totally different from the psychological side, where we're talking more about sex. Now, you could be addicted to sex, the pleasure of sex. See, when I think of a sex addiction, I think, or being addicted to, if you were addicted to something in sex, you're not addicted to sex. Sex is the act. It's the process in which we gain the pleasure. That's kind of what Paul was saying. It's the pleasure, the orgasm, the ejaculation, and everything leading up to it. That's the high that people are chasing. Everyone wants that pleasure. They want to feel that pleasure. That's my position on things. And you know, as far as addiction is concerned, I really don't know where you're coming from with this entire. When do men become sex addicts, Deryk? I mean, explain that to me. Are we sex addicts from birth? It's kind of like all babies are atheists. You know, I mean, are we all sex addicts from birth? No, do we wait until our nuts drop when we're 12 or 13 years old, or whenever they drop? Do we wait until we go through puberty and we automatically become sex addicts because we feel a sex drive? I mean, explain yourself, Deryk. Explain your position on when men become sex addicts. How do we become sex addicts? What drives us to become sex addicts? Give me some data. That's what Paul was asking about. Give him some data. Give me some data. Give me some case studies. Give me anything that lends any credence to your position whatsoever, other than your own opinion. And when people disagree with you, you just get pissed off and you call them retards. Or you tell them, think about it again, think about it for more than 5 minutes. You just get pissed off. You're like a kid that wants to take his ball and go home. You just don't like it. Well, the ball's out there, dude. You put it out there. So now I'm going to take it, and I'm going to throw it back at you. I mean, I can't even say there are these big holes in your arguments. Your argument is fragmented. There's like little pieces of your argument here and there and everywhere, and they don't even fit together. They don't even have the same. There's not even like a male female. It doesn't work, dude. And your ideas on rape, I don't know where you're getting it from. I mean, really, it's like you're going against the entire psychological community. Because I mean, this is like a precedent you're setting. You know, I don't know where it's coming from. You're saying that rape is about sex addiction. And you say, well, so you've got the sex addiction. So you're automatically assuming there's a sex addiction, and then people rape as a result of that. And because there's someone who withholds and controls the punani is what I'll call it, if you will. Sorry, I know that's a little bit crude, but people are withholding the sex or have the power to withhold that. The other person has no choice but to rape because they've got to get it somehow. That's the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard. That's very misogynistic. It's extremely misogynistic. And then you talk about resentment. Resenting the person who holds it. Well, why would you resent that person? If you didn't have a problem in the first place, if you didn't have some sort of psychological issue or some sort of problem, maybe your feelings were hurt, maybe you were shot down by this person, maybe you were turned down on the date, maybe this person didn't like you, maybe they made a bad comment, whatever it is, there has to be a pre-existing condition for you to have that issue and want to resent that person. There has to be some sort of history, some events leading up to that. It's got to be something. It's not just this sex addiction. It's like, oh, I resent you because you have a vagina and you won't give it to me. That's ridiculous, dude. I mean, it's utterly ridiculous. I'm going to paint a picture for you in regards to this rape issue. As far as power versus sex. Let's just say, now I'm 6'1", I'm 300 plus pounds. I'm a big dude. Let's just say I'm at the grocery store and I'm walking through the grocery store and I see someone, a really beautiful girl. I think she's attractive. You know, the first thing that passes in my mind is, God, I'd really, I don't know what I'd do if I got a hold of that, But I've got this compulsion and I'm looking at her and I'm staring at her and she sees me staring at her. And she's like, what are you staring at, creep? Fuck off. And she gives me this dirty look and she treats me like shit and she walks away. Well, let's just say that I'm a rapist. Let's say that I've raped before. Now, I'm making a point here, Deryk, because this is not about sex. Now, this woman just insulted me. She just told me or showed me because I have some sort of pre-existing condition or psychological issue that's telling me I've been disrespected. This bitch just disrespected me. She just basically made me think that she's got all the power. She's gonna say that to me. she's going to withhold from me. I'm going to show her. So now let's say I follow her home, but she doesn't see me. I watch her go into her apartment, and I wait, okay? And let's just say a week later, I'm dressed in a nice suit, I have a clipboard, I've got a name tag, and I roll up to her door. Now I use whatever excuse and whatever title I have to use when I ring the doorbell and tell her whatever story I have to tell her, and I'm as nice as can be, and yes ma'am, absolutely, I'm just here to take this survey on. And as soon as she opens that door, now let's say she doesn't open the door, that's wonderful. I'll move on to someone else because I have a compulsion. I'm compelled. I have this addiction, you call it, but it's not about sex. It's I've got to get this. I've got to satiate this compulsion that I have. And she opens the door and I punch her in the face. Now I punch her as hard as I can and I drive her nose into her face and she's got tears and blood in her eyes. She doesn't even know what the hell's going on. She tries to scream but she can't because I've got my hand over her mouth and I've shut the door and I've locked it. Now I'm picked her up and I'm dragging her with her legs dragging on the floor and she's kicking and screaming and I've got my hand over her mouth. And I'm dragging her to the bedroom. And let's just say I punched her in the mouth a couple more times just to get her to stop, just to get her to shut the fuck up. And I've got my hands over her mouth and I pick up something along the way and I stuff it into her mouth. And then I really shut her up. I get her to the bedroom and I throw her down on the bed and I roll her over because that's the position I want her to be in when I show her what kind of fucking man I am. So then I drive my forearm into the back of her neck, right? I drive my forearm into the back of her neck, and then I rip off her pants. Let's just say you're watching this, Deryk. Let's say you're watching it through a video camera and you're recording it. And I rip these pants off. I grab those pants and I tear them off. And I even scrape some of the skin and get some skin under my fingernails and there's blood coming out. And I tear those panties off. And she's in a position where she can do absolutely nothing. And I'm already feeling it start to build. I'm starting to feel that erection, and I can feel it getting harder and harder as it raises up, and I can feel that power and that control coursing through my body, and I say, yeah, I'm gonna show this bitch who's in control, and I rape her repeatedly, and I beat her, and I abuse her, and I leave her bloody and beaten and broken until I'm satisfied. Until I'm done, till I've shown this bitch who's really in control. Who's the one who's really handling this? Who's the one who's really got control of this situation? It's me. It's me, Deryk. Now imagine that it's not this woman. Imagine it's you. Because that happens. Believe it or not, it happens. And it's not about sex. It's not about pleasure. It's not about anything but control, compulsion. But it's not a sex addiction. It's a power struggle. It's about control. It's psychological. It's a sickness. It has nothing to do with the act of sex, with the pleasure of sex, with love, with intimacy, with passion. Nothing. And it's got nothing, it really doesn't have anything to do. This may be what goes through the individual's mind who rapes. She thinks she's better than me. I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, the rapist is not going to say, oh, well, she thinks she can hold that, but she's got control of the vagina. I resent her for that, so I'm going to rape her. I don't think so. And until you can show me some other evidence or some case studies or some data that backs up your position, I just think it's out there, man. I mean, honestly. Now, I'm not, the burden of proof lies with you. You made the argument, brother, not me. I'm responding like you asked for. So, it's absolutely about power. Deryk, I'm sorry this had to be the way I had to... this had to be the first video I made to you, but you really didn't conduct yourself with much civility, and I think you're arrogant. I think you're egocentric. I think you believe your position to be the most right and most reasonable, and I don't know where that's coming from. I think it's just ridiculous.